You know what sound that is, folks? You betcha it's another ElkWorks Noon Whistle on a snow day version. My name's Chris Trottier.
And I'm John Anzalone, and we're here with our esteemed guest, Richard VanScotter. Richard, thanks for...
Third time, John.
It
Third
is
time.
Richard's third time. You're a regular.
Good morning, gentlemen. Good to see you.
Good morning. Hey, we're going to talk about Richard, the author, today, and Thin Clads, right?
Fine with me.
All right. And thanks for sending me the signed copy.
Woo!
Treasure that, John. Yeah.
I do believe we have some acknowledgments, though, don't we? A little bit. We want to talk a little bit about your brother, Roger.
Yes. Well, some of you know Roger passed away yesterday morning early. He lived in California, Laguna Beach, and he'd been suffering for a while, and had a fall before Christmas, and broke 7 or 8 ribs, and sustained internal injuries. Was in intensive care for a couple weeks. Came home, was in good spirits. I talked to him maybe 10 days ago. He was joking a little bit, and then he took a turn for the worse. His daughter came out there, and she's with him, and at the end he couldn't eat. He was just sucking on ice cubes for moisture, and passed away yesterday morning at 5 o'clock California time.
Well, our thoughts are with you, Richard, and certainly all the VanScotters have an amazing legacy, not only in Elkhorn, but all along the way with all the things you've done.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Roger was one of the best athletes. You know, one of the first year he was inducted into Elkhorn's Hall of Fame back in 2015.
He had to be one of the first inductees, wasn't he?
He was in that first class.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Because of he was an all-around sports guy, but he track and field was where he really stood out. Still holds school records there, you know, in Elkhorn.
Amazing.
The VanScotters' names all over the place still. So don't cut yourself short, or your brother Al short, or all you guys did your thing, and I think we captured a lot of that in Thin Clads.
Those were great years, I'll tell you. I think Roger suffered from, he's a periodontist, and I don't know if you ever had gum surgery, but it's tedious work, and it's very painful for patients, and you have to stay with them. He's bent over all the time with them, and the patients are hurt. They're in pain a great deal. I think all that took a toll on Roger physically and emotionally.
I'm sure.
I can see the difference as he got older.
Yeah, I'm sure.
He stayed with his patients over time.
So I think, today I'm assuming everybody's tuning in, as always, into the #1 podcast in Walworth County. Let's make sure that all our guests are chiming in. I know, Richard, you said you had some people chiming in. Use that comment button on your social media and chime in, and those will appear. So without further ado, John, let's jump into the Thin Clads. What do you think?
Yeah, let's maybe you could start, Richard, let's just start by the pictures. Run down the line. What made you put these pictures on the cover?
Yeah, as they say, the pictures can tell 1,000 words. And
I heard that.
The first one on the top is the harness racing, which is a big deal in Elkhorn, but that's where our track team started on the practice track for the horses.
Thoroughbreds you were, weren't you?
Pardon?
Thoroughbreds, they called you.
It was that they the guys did that. They measured off the track. Track and field started in 1954 in Elkhorn. I graduated in 57, and the guys measured the track and did everything basically to get it started. And it was about 500 something yards, and so it was a pretty strange looking track. We had a straightaway that went all the way along back of the racetrack over to the high school out there. Our field events were held at the end of it. So we had almost a 400-yard straightaway.
So were those big stands there then that are there now? The grandstand, was that theirs?
Yeah, but they were all wooden ones then. They burnt down after that.
Okay.
The grandstands were all there. The track was beautiful. I mean, it attracted an awful lot of people. The racers came from Chicago. The tracks there in Chicago, Maywood and Memorial. And the other track there, and so it was a big deal. And we would have our field events at the end of the track. Now, there was where I lived on Washington Street, North Washington, the first block, but right on the corner there was a farrier, horseshoer, Lloyd Arp. That's where the library is now. The library wasn't there. That library had been expanded, but he was a horseshoer. We used to go over there and watch him make horseshoes, pound them out, and on the hot coals and so forth. And that was a big business because there are a lot of horses.
So did the VanScotters rule Washington Street then? Was that? I'm surprised they didn't rename it.
They should.
They can still do it, Yeah, that 100 block there, and the downtown taverns down there had a lot of harness racing stuff hanging in there. So it was as you well know, it was a major industry in Elkhorn in a sense with it, and that's how our track team got started.
So who are the guys on the front
from the left to the right is Bill Reese, and I think Bill's tuned in today. Bill
I hope he is.
Let's get him to chime in via his social media account.
So we got Bill Reese.
I'm the second one, and then Bill Ward, who I dedicated the book to, and then Roger's the third one. Ward was the only senior on the team. Reese and I were juniors, and Roger was a sophomore on that team. We didn't know what was going to happen. We really hadn't run any big meets until we ran the conference meet, and Wilmot had a really good team. They were Class C. Then they were a smaller school, under 300 students. They were really good, and we beat them in our the only relay race was the 4x220 sprint relay at that time. I mean, the longest race that we had was in the state was a mile. There's no 2 miles then, or 5K and so forth. And so we didn't know where we really were till we beat Wilmot in the conference meet. They had a terrific team, great year for them. And then
so
we went to
Richard,
and we pardon.
Oh, so if we think Bill Reese is on here, if we had you and Bill Reese on at the same time and asked who was faster, how would that go? How would that go?
That's an interesting story. If you notice that Bill runs the first leg and I'm the second leg. And the reason was our first track meet we had that junior year, Bill nipped me at the tape. And so our coach, Gordy Henham, said, okay, Bill, you run first in the relay and Richard run second. That's how we decided it. But that's the only race that Bill beat me in. He was close. We was always just half a stride behind me, maybe a little bit more in the 220, but we were always close together.
All right. All right.
He was a tougher football.
If Bill's on, we need confirmation from Bill.
We need Bill's
story.
Yeah. And Bill Ward, the last guy, Bill died a few years ago, back in 2003 of stomach cancer. Bill was a big kid, but he was fast. He was on the football team. He had been a fullback for his first 2 years, and then Suki moved him to the line because we had a lot of fast backfield guys. Roger was there, Bill Reese, Jack Kirkham, Sonny Cologne, myself were all on the team then. And so Bill moved to the line. He didn't like that, but he was a very good lineman, a very good football player. And I dedicated the book to Bill.
Okay.
Because he had great memories of Elkhorn. I mean, when his wife, I wrote a story in 2006, was 50 years after the first time we went to the state track meet. And the Elkhorn Independent published this story. Bill's wife read it and she said, I can't believe this. This reminds me of the movie Hoosiers. Remember that basketball movie?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So that got me thinking, and I wrote so I got to write a little longer story now. And it turned into the book, Thin Class, that I published in 2010.
So you have a chapter in here that says no ordinary town. What's no ordinary town? Why is Elkhorn no ordinary town?
Well, it's special in its devotion to music, to horse racing, to the people, athletes and others that came out of that town, students and otherwise. I'd have to pick up the chapter and reread it again to see exactly what I said, but I use that as a starting point to take off to describe a little bit more about what it was like growing up in Elkhorn.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, the pictures you have in here and everything from the band shell to the track to Edmund Stevenson to downtown to football, baseball, track. Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting how you kind of covered so many things from Elkhorn. And if someone wanted to get a book, how do they get a book? Where can they order one?
You can order it online.
Okay.
And they have some. I left a couple books down at the county information center downtown.
The Historical Society.
There's a couple books there. The library has copies.
Okay.
And
but Amazon
they have to get it to. They have to order it online to the publisher. I have maybe a couple copies left at my house. Yeah.
Is it on Amazon by chance or no?
I think so.
I thought so too.
I haven't looked lately, but
okay,
it probably is. It's around. They can also get it from the library.
I have a question, and maybe we've answered this. I don't recall. How did you come up with the title Thin Clads?
Thin Clads is the name of what track runners wore. They wore thin uniforms. Now it's an old-fashioned name that is hung around, but if you look at our uniforms, that picture on the cover, we wore old basketball uniforms, and they were different. Reese and Ward have uniforms that were in the late basketball uniforms from the late 40s, and Roger and I are wearing them from the early 50s. They're different uniforms. They weren't anything but thin clads. They were kind of heavy, and our shorts were gym shorts, so the standard purple gym shorts. That
look at that.
Yeah, that's a good picture of Roger.
It was carried over all the way to the 80s.
Yeah. And so the next, those are white. Then the next year, they dug in and they found some old junior high uniforms that we used to use in Pioneers, YMCA, and they had Elkhorn across the front, and they were purple, but they were still basketball uniforms. We had little numbers on the back, but they looked like track uniforms. You can maybe see up. If you look at the picture of our team back there in the purple ones. Then the next year, 58, when Roger was a senior, they were gold. They were the basketball uniforms from the early 50s. They changed the colors, but they were still just basketball uniforms that we wear. So after they won the state championship, Class B in 58. So finally, the principal and the athletic director, which is Suki, said, gee, we ought to get these guys track uniforms at least. So that's when the first uniforms came in, was after the 1958 season.
So these were basketball uniforms, correct?
Those are basketball uniforms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Baseball uniforms look good.
Handsome baseball uniform.
Ooh,
that's a baseball. Oh, we got those. I think the school got those at a fire sale because they weren't even purple and gold. They were red.
You borrowed them from Will.
They didn't have numbers on the back, but those were our baseball uniforms.
Were they wool? Were they still the wool ones?
They were wool. You know, look at that picture again. Don't I look like Joe DiMaggio or something?
You do.
They have little baggy pictures there.
The Elkhorn Clipper.
Yeah, those are our baseball uniforms.
Okay.
We didn't have much better in football. Basketball were kind of nice, but I guess those are fewer players and less expensive or something.
So John, believe it or not, we're starting to get to this threshold of almost 15 minutes. We do have I appreciate our fellow Rotarian, John Henderson, with some comments. And for all of you who are listening, there are Thin Clad books in the chamber office per John Henderson. So thank you for bringing that to our attention, John. And anything else with the book, John, that you want to cover with Richard?
Anything you want to quick explain or talk about? We got like a minute, 2 minutes, maybe.
Well, the third picture has to do with the Elkhorn's a music town, and that even goes back before Holton's came to town. I look at this picture in there of my grandfather, who, by the way, Fred McGill and McGill Brothers Plumbing downtown, and he was a very good runner. But in the day before horse races, before fire trucks, he was a champion hose runner, and he was at the World's Fair in St. Louis and finished third place nationally. And I think Roger and I got our speed from my grandfather, but also from my dad. Roger is a splitting image of my father, but Dad never got to high school. He had to go to work when he was younger, and he probably would have been a good track man as well. Then I had an uncle who was a high jumper, had set the high jump record at Beloit College. That's the reason I went to Beloit, because my uncle, Gary McGill. So we had some trackmen in the family.
Yeah.
That's good. All right, John, how do you want to end this session of the Noon Whistle here on this snowy day? It's what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, let's have a little
John.
fun with telling people you're from Elkhorn without saying Elkhorn. And so I would lead it off, and I'd go back to Kunkel's Pharmacy. Kunkel's Pharmacy, which was right by Washington Street on the corner of Court and Wisconsin. So that's how someone would know I'm from Elkhorn. Richard, how would you, 2 words or less?
Small town boy, the author of my brother Don's book.
All right.
You carry that with you. You're always a small town boy. You never forget that heritage that you have.
All right, Chris.
I'm going to say, and I get feedback, and I hear this often in our region and around southeast Wisconsin. One herd. Hashtag one herd.
All right.
It would either be that or John Handel. One of the two.
I'd go with the first one.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Well, Richard, we appreciate you coming on. And again, the Elkhorn community is sorry for your loss. We always enjoy hearing your historical context, and for everybody who chimed in, thank you. John Anderson, always looking forward to your comments. And anything else before we part here?
I have one last note. My brother Al went in for a heart surgery this morning, if you can believe that. And he's good. I heard from him right after it.
Good.
He had a blocked artery completely, but because he participated in senior track and field over the years, the blood found a way around the heart, so it created a brand new pathway. So Al's doing fine right now.
That's awesome.
But he and I are the last ones standing from the 5 Van Boys.
Okay. Well, you take care of yourself. Take care of yourself.
Take care.
Take care, Al.
Thank you so much for being
on as long as you guys are. So on the program.
All right. Well, thank you, Richard and John. Make sure you got your shovel ready. It's starting to come down pretty good. So,
yeah.
So on that, thank you everybody for tuning in. And Richard, have a great day. And I think it's about time for us to go back to work.
All right. Thanks, Richard. Appreciate it. Take care.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.